Okay, so here are your sources for the Southern Violence lesson. As you can see, the structure looks very similar to what you've done before as far as the sourcing in previous lessons. You can see that there are guiding questions up at the top. What was the main reason whites were violently attacking freedmen, according to the sources? And why was denying freedmen the right to vote so important to Southern whites? Those two questions, if you can answer them, will make it so that when you go to the exit ticket, you've already done all the work that you need to do, right? Those are the two main components to answering the exit ticket effectively. So, as you go through your sources and as you complete the questions that go along with these sources, these two things are what you should always be coming back to and how you can tie your answers back to these two ideas. As we look ahead to the sources themselves, we can see we have source A, right? Here's the sourcing information. Then we have the source itself, and then some questions. Moving forward to source B, sourcing information, the text. So this is what the reading says, as I'll show you in a minute, and then some questions. As I was just saying earlier, this is the text right here, because I don't expect you to be able to read this, but this is what the text for source or the source B actually looked like, right? The physical piece of paper. So figured you don't really need it, but it's cool, so put it in there anyways. And then source C, so we can see same thing. We have the sourcing information, a bunch of it, and then we have the source itself, right? These paragraphs right here. Some questions to go along with it. After your three sources, you can see I have two questions here. These are those same guiding questions that you saw up at the top. So I'm giving you a space to be able to answer them and get your thinking where you need to be in order to do the exit ticket. Following that, as I just said, the exit ticket. So same expectation applies. I expect to see reading and annotating. Obviously, I can't tell if you read it, but if you're making annotations and answering the questions, then I'm assuming you read the sources and are going to be successful. Completing the guiding questions and then completing the exit ticket to this. Something that I've noticed a lot of people are getting a little slacking on is using specific pieces of evidence. Make sure you tell me where you got your info from. Okay? Especially when it's very, very broken down for you with two questions. If you can answer these two questions and then tie them into your exit ticket answer, you will do well. Guarantee it. So, if we're going to look back to source A to give you a little help, if you're still going through this video, we have source A, oral history of a former slave, Texas, 1865. So this is the account, this is the story of a former slave in 1865. If we look ahead to the questions before we even dive in so we know what we're looking for, what is significant about the date that this was written? Think about how it relates to the Civil War. So if we're looking for the date, right, that's our key bit of information here. We can see in our sourcing information, 1865. Hopefully, and I know it's been a long time, but hopefully we know that 1865 is the date is significant because the war just ended. Okay, that's how it relates to Civil War. So the idea here is this is directly after the war ends. All these former slaves are now free. What does that look like before there's any kind of systems in place? Why did the plantation owners in source A not want former slaves to leave the plantations? So this is kind of an inference that you might need to make, as you can see when we start to read. Lots of slaves were killed after freedom because the slaves in Harrison County were turned loose right after freedom and those in Rusk County weren't. But they heard about it and ran away to freedom in Harrison County, and their owners had them bushwhacked, then shot down. You could see lots of slaves hanging from trees in Sabine Bottom right after freedom because they caught them swimming across the Sabine River and shot them. So hopefully here, when we're giving an answer, we're not just saying there was violence done. That's why the second question is here is, well, why? Why are we asking this question? Why are we reading the source? So why would these former slave owners, these plantation owners, not want these former slaves to leave? Why would they want them to stay there? Okay. Hopefully your mind is going back to those sharecropping lessons that we talked about 2 weeks ago now. Why would they want them to stay there, right? To keep control of them, to keep power over these former slaves. And if they have the power there, then they continue to make all that money and have that status that they had. Okay. As always, if you have questions, if you need a little bit of help, reach out via Google Classroom. Once again, as I just said, I'm pretty good at responding to those. But take your time. You got this.